And we're going to get started. Welcome, everybody, to the North Fair Oaks Community Council meeting for the month of February 2020. Mitzi, if we can proceed with a roll call, please.
Of course. Chair Everardo Rodriguez.
Present.
Vice Chair Beatriz Cerillo.
Present.
Councilmember Juan Carlos Prado.
Here, present.
Councilmember Linda Lopez.
Present.
Councilmember Blair Whitney.
Here.
Councilmember Jennifer Reese. Councilmember Rosaura Lopez.
Here.
Youth Member Francis Santos.
Thank you, Mitzi. For public comment, anyone may speak up to 2 minutes on any topic not on the agenda tonight. If you wish to do so, please fill out a speaker's slip, which will be given to you by the front at the table by the entrance. The council may not discuss or take action on items not on the agenda tonight. And if your public comment corresponds to any of tonight's agenda, you will need to wait until that item is on the table. Thank you. And we'll go on with election officers for council chair and vice chair for the North Fair Oaks Community Council. This is a recurring issue that we need to continuously do. And now it'll be the time for you council members to think about nominating some of the council members to either continue or nominate new members as chair and vice chair. Currently, just for your information, though you may know that I am the chair, but you may not know that Beatriz is the vice chair. So Beatriz is the vice chair, and so you can nominate anybody from our council. When you do so, consider that these two chairmanships require a little bit of more involvement in community actions and attending other public meetings where the presence of the North Fair Oaks Community Council is needed. Or invitations that pertain to community-related issues or county-related issues, either related to North Fair Oaks and occasionally to the city of Redwood City, since we share some of the services provided to the North Fair Oaks community. So a nomination implies that you would need to put some more time dedicated to those issues to officially respond to some of the correspondence that you would get as chair or vice chair, and also to communicate continuously with county to generate new agendas and study session meetings, etc. So at this point, I will open the floor for anybody to make suggestions.
I would like to make a proposal that Ever Rodriguez continue in office of chair, and that Jennifer Ruiz, if she accepts, come on as vice chair. That's my slate of nominations.
Thank you, Linda. Also, if you don't have nominations yet but have questions, please feel free to do so.
I've got a clarifying thing.
Yeah.
I know the bylaws have term limits of three-year terms for council members, and then I think the chair has like 3 terms, or I don't know what the deal is, but are you eligible and willing to serve for another term if elected?
That is a good question. Thank you, Blair. I'll refer the question to Mr. Tim Fox, County Council.
Thanks. The bylaws don't place a number on limit of terms for a person to serve as officer. Obviously, it would be limited by the amount of time that a person can serve on the council, but it specifically provides shall be no limit on the number of terms for which a member may serve as an officer.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
As for your second question, if I would be interested in the chairmanship continued, I think I can bear with another year if it comes down to that. I'll be happy and willing to do it. Rosaura, did you have questions or nominations?
Yeah,
from-
I would like to nominate Juan Carlos Prado for chair and Jennifer Ruiz for vice chair.
Thank you, Rosaura.
I got a question. It seems like it might make sense to divide the motion and vote on the chair, and then we might select the person that didn't get elected chair as the vice chair. I mean, I don't like the whole slate thing where you're, well, whatever. But my motion would be to divide the election and choose the chair first and then the vice chair second.
I suppose that we need to vote on those two officials. Correct me if I'm wrong. It cannot become the de facto as simply nominated. So if the second person doesn't end up being the chair, as a de facto cannot necessarily be the vice chair. Correct?
Well, the bylaws merely provide that officers are elected by a simple majority vote of the members present at the meeting. And that can be done any number of ways. The bylaws don't specify whether it's done as a matter of electing a slate or individually. It really is up to the council to decide how best to do it. But by proposing a motion is one method, or by opening nominations as you've done, and then receiving nominations, and then waiting for a motion to close nominations so that you know the number of candidates that are running, and then simply tallying the votes for each of the candidates for that office. It's a pretty common method of getting the business done.
Okay.
Through the chair,
Yes.
I would leave it as a slate because the person being proposed by two members is the same person for vice chair. So we're really only looking at two different motions and see which one goes.
Right.
Okay, so I didn't make a motion, I just proposed.
Right.
I
Those
can
were.
do a motion on what I proposed, and Rosada can do her motion on what she proposed, and we go from there. But there's no
can
need
vote-
to
That's
break
not
it
how
up
elections
because
work.
Jennifer's being proposed for vice chair on both.
If I may, rather than have
Does
two...
that sound?
It's difficult to hold a vote on two competing motions. I think the council is aware of what their options are. If you simply hold a vote on one of the two slates, if that obtains a majority, then you've elected officers to both offices in that action because the council will have said there's a majority in support of that slate.
Okay.
So ideally, it could be done, the vote could be held in the order in which the motions were made, but it's up to the chair to decide how to hold the vote.
I actually have a competing motion to have Ever as chair and my esteemed colleague to the left as vice chair, just to complicate things further.
Third one?
Okay.
Okay.
That's Juan Carlos, right?
Yep, Juan
Robert.
Carlos is vice chair, Ever is chair.
I guess at this point I should ask Juan Carlos if he is willing to take either for the nominations, if he's willing to take any any of these chairmanships or office, or perhaps he's not ready. Can you tell us how you feel about it?
Yeah, through the chair, I'm here to serve. So if, however, the council members here see that fit. So if I've been nominated for both the chair or vice chair, I'm open to those possibilities. That's fine. I accept that.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. Okay, so I guess I should get a motion, right, for,
Well, in essence, there are three motions on the table.
right.
I've lost track of which ones have been seconded, so I apologize for that.
I have them
Okay.
down.
So
Yeah.
it would really be in the discretion of the chair to call a vote on whichever motion, which relates to a slate. And the three slates that I have are Ever Rodriguez as chair, and Jennifer Ruiz as vice chair. We'll call that one motion. Juan Carlos Prado as chair, and Jennifer Ruiz
vice
as
chair.
vice chair is another.
Correct.
And then the third is Ever Rodriguez as the chair, and Juan Carlos Prado as vice chair
Correct.
is a third option. So the
Correct.
order in which you call a vote on those shouldn't ultimately matter, because I think the council can decide, they can vote no on whichever slate they don't agree with, and whichever one carries a majority will be the winning slate.
Can't vote twice like Iowa caucus.
Well, if you vote on each motion,
Okay.
so if your favored motion doesn't pass, it then falls off the table and you're allowed to vote again. So it's not as if you say, I'm in favor of slate 1, I'm in favor of slate 2, or slate 3. You're allowed to vote as each one is considered, and if the first one is defeated, you vote a second time.
Okay, so should we take a vote on each of those? So the first motion, the first suggestion was Linda Lopez, myself as chair, and Jennifer as vice chair. Mitzi, can you take vote on that, please?
Of course. Everardo Rodriguez.
Okay, one question. So I can vote for myself, just to corroborate.
Yes, there's no need to abstain from voting on an officer candidacy on the basis that you're the officer.
Okay, and so a yes or no would be including the vice chair.
Correct. It's being done as a motion, so it's a slate.
Okay. In that case, I vote
That's
yes.
the one, right?
Beatriz Cerrillo.
No.
Juan Carlos Prado.
No.
Linda Lopez.
Yes.
Blair Whitney.
No.
Jennifer Reese. Rosaura Lopez.
No. That's the number one, right? Okay.
She didn't ask you.
So yes at all three.
I apologize. And youth member Francis Santos.
What if you can't, like, I don't have a decision right now, so
You can abstain.
You can abstain. I suppose you can abstain.
no.
Whatever you feel comfortable.
No.
Sometimes you just.
It's like student council elections.
Yeah, she voted no. Okay. So what was your tally?
I counted too. It isn't that. can't have 5 no's and 3 yeses. Is it different?
The motion fails.
Yeah. Okay. And so I guess we can essentially say that ticket doesn't carry. It wasn't a motion, but that suggestion does not carry. And moving on to the second suggestion, that was Rosaura's suggestion. Juan Carlos as chair and Jennifer as vice chair.
Through the chair, give me a second.
I vote no, don't personally.
Okay. Chair Everardo Rodriguez,
No.
Beatriz Cerrillo,
Yes.
Juan Carlos Prado,
Yes.
Linda Lopez,
No?
Blair Whitney,
No.
Jennifer Reese,
It was, just to remind you, it was Rosaura's suggestion, Juan Carlos as the chair, and yourself as vice chair. You could abstain.
Rosaura Lopez,
Yes.
Youth Member Francis Santos.
No.
No.
Could all vote no on this and totally screw it up. Third one.
Okay, so that motion failed.
Okay, so moving on to the third option, this was Blair's suggestion for myself as the chair and Juan Carlos as the vice chair.
Everardo Rodriguez,
Yes.
Beatriz Cerrillo,
Yes.
Juan Carlos Prado,
Yes.
Linda Lopez,
Yes?
Blair Whitney,
Yes.
Jennifer Reese,
Yes.
Abstain.
Rosaura Lopez,
No.
Youth Member Francis Santos.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Very well. So I will continue to be the chair of the North Forks Community Council, and Juan Carlos Prado will be the vice chair for the North Forks Community Council.
Okay. Congratulations.
Wow, it worked out.
Congratulations and thank you. Is there any public comment on this item?
No public comment.
All right, moving on to item number 4 of tonight's agenda. It'll be the Redwood City 2020 Welcoming Stars Award to the Multicultural Institute and to Caron. And the presentation will be led by Shannon Chu.
Is this? Yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening, and thank you, council members and community members. Unfortunately, Supervisor Slocum, who was originally going to present this award, is unavailable tonight, so I will be presenting the award on behalf of Redwood City 2020. For those who haven't heard before, Redwood City 2020 is a community collaborative comprised of 8 nonprofit and public core member organizations and hundreds of community-based affiliate organizations that work together to ensure that all people living in North Fair Oaks and Redwood City are healthy, safe, and successful. Redwood City Together is the welcoming initiative of Redwood City 2020. Redwood City Together gives out the Welcoming Star Award 4 times per year. The Welcoming Star Award recognizes programs in North Fair Oaks and Redwood City that create a welcoming environment across social divides such as race, class, and immigration status. It shines a light on what is working with the hope that others will follow suit. So tonight we would like to recognize 2 welcoming stars, Caron and the Multicultural Institute here at the North Fair Oaks Community Council meeting. Could I ask the representatives of Caron and Multicultural Institute to please come up to the podium? Okay. Thank you. So first, I'll be awarding the award to Caron. Caron stands for Community Alliance to Revitalize Our Neighborhood and is a program under the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office. In Redwood City and North Fair Oaks, Caron helps bridge gaps between immigrant families and law enforcement and believes that there is no better crime prevention than community engagement. A hallmark program of Caron is the Community Academy, a 7-week program that covers topics ranging from gang prevention to civic engagement. These community academies give participants of diverse backgrounds the opportunity to make a positive impact in their neighborhoods. Receiving the award tonight will be Sergeant Salvador Zuno, the director of Caron. And so here you go. Thank you. And for over 13 years, the Multicultural Institute has walked alongside the day laborer community in North Fair Oaks and accompanied them in their transition from poverty and isolation to workforce participation and prosperity. Within this time period, Multicultural Institute has served over 1,200 day laborers with wraparound services such as job placement, housing, legal aid, education, and healthcare. By conducting outreach directly out on the streets, Multicultural Institute staff build trust within the day laborer community and continue to help the immigrant community reach economic stability. Here to receive the award tonight are Cesar Mesa Esvele, the Multicultural Institute Program Director, Josue Revolorio, the Multicultural Institute Program Assistant, Maria Leon, a domestic worker, Mariana Sanchez, a domestic worker, Teresa Sanchez, a domestic worker, Edelmira Vera, domestic worker, Gloria Rangel, domestic worker, Evelyn Ruano, domestic worker, Giovanni Cerezo, a day laborer, Eulogio Chacon, a day laborer, Guillermina Quiros, a domestic worker, and Laura Marquez, a domestic worker. Thank you very much to the Multicultural Institute. And now I'll give a few minutes to both organizations to say a few words.
Good evening. I'm Salvador Zuno with the Sheriff's Office. I am the director of the Caron program. And I'd like to start off by thanking Redwood City 2020 for the recognition, the North Fair Oaks Council for your support. This award is really important and special to us because it means a lot of things. It means that what we're doing is making a difference, but that success wouldn't be possible without, the support of our Sheriff Carlos Bolanos and our Captain Christina Corpus. Also, we're really lucky to have such valuable partners here in North Fair Oaks. Supervisor Slocum's one of them, and the Multicultural Institute is another one of our great partners. So this award, it's not just for one person, it's for a lot of people that work hard every day on all the events that we do to make North Fair Oaks a better place. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I would like to say thank you to Redwood City 2020 for this recognition, and also the North Fair Oaks Council for all your support all these years. And it's been a long way. So we got here close to 14 years ago. I remember the day, July 2nd, 2006. And since now we have been every morning on the streets with the day labor community,
accompanying them and being there for them, and also for our domestic workers of the area. And so we are receiving this award, we are accepting this award on behalf of our day laborers and our day domestic workers, and also on behalf of all those immigrants who die on the desert trying to cross the border, looking for a better life for their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant Zuno and Cesar. We always ask Welcoming Stars recipients to share a tangible way that people can take action and support their efforts. Community members can attend the Care-On Community Academies and increase its impact by giving their own stamp of approval and helping to spread the word. In addition, community members can hire day laborers and domestic workers through the Multicultural Institute. Multicultural Institute will also be having its 13th anniversary dinner, a fundraising event on March 5th at Synapse School. Yes. And now if I could ask to take pictures with the group. Mm-hmm.
Oh, here's the photo of him.
Yeah, feel free to
Yeah, it's Synapse School.
Put them behind them. Is that fine?
Yeah.
You guys can go behind them. And then we'll
Yes, yes.
Just to follow the protocol, if there are any questions by council members, please go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question about the Multicultural Institute dinner at the Synapse School. I got the date. How much are the tickets and what's the time?
I believe there are 100, and the ceremony starts at 6:30, from 6:30 to 8:30.
Okay.
And you can either get in touch with Cesar about the tickets or go to their website and you'll find, directions.
Yeah. I'm sorry, through the chair, they're actually 100 per individual, unless you get your company or organization to sponsor,
you.
then that company or organization can bring on 3 or 4 guests.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so anyway.
Thank you, Linda, for the correction. Quickly, I would like to congratulate, on behalf of the North Fair Oaks Community Council, these 2 organizations, the Multicultural Institute and Care-On, are tremendous community partners with which our community is definitely better. So thank you. Is there any public comment on this item?
No public comment.
Thank you. We will go on to item number 5 on the agenda. That is an update on the 855 Barron housing complex, and it'll be presented by Peggy Jensen.
Yeah. Good evening, council members, staff, and members of the audience. I'm pleased to be here this evening to give you an update. Is that better? Can you hear? An update on the Redwood Trailer Village project. No? Okay.
Oh, the video can hear.
So the Redwood Trailer Village project in North Fair Oaks was a housing preservation project that was sponsored by Supervisor Slocum and was worked on by a variety of people in the county. Let's see. There we go. Redwood Trailer Village is a mobile home park in North Fair Oaks at 855 Barron Avenue that is home to approximately 200 low-income residents, many of whom are families with school-age children. For the past 4 years, the county has worked to improve the living conditions of the park and to prevent mass eviction of the residents. The county developed a low-interest loan program totaling slightly over $3 million that allow the park residents to purchase new units so that they could remain in the mobile home park at Barron Avenue. The county also provided relocation assistance to all the residents so that they could remain housed while their old units were removed and the new units were installed. The project was divided into 3 phases and included working with the park owner to upgrade the old and failing electrical system and also to repair the parking and the paving and the drainage in the park. I would like to share with you some of the before and after pictures and some of the pictures of the residents in their new homes, and you'll see that there's the significant difference this project made in people's lives. So this is a picture of Redwood Trailer Village back in March of 2019. At this time, every single unit in the village was essentially red taggable. Had we not come in and replaced the units, each one of those units would have been declared uninhabitable and all the residents would have been evicted. This is another picture. The reason these units weren't habitable is that many of them people had expanded them by cutting into the walls, which compromised the structural stability of the unit. There was also a lot of electrical wiring that hadn't been properly installed and a variety of other safety and public health concerns. Again, this is a picture in March of 2019. So I mentioned that we undertook this project in 3 phases. This is a plot plan for the Redwood Trailer Village. You can see all the different units. The first phase was started at the bottom, what we would call the even lane, C lane. The second phase was the odd C lane and the even B lane, and then the last phase were the top 3 rows, lane A and the other parts of lane B. First phase was completed in March of 19 when 8 new units were installed and 1 trailer on the site was relocated within the park. This is a photo of the inside of one of the 2-bedroom units. All of the units in the first phase were 2 bedrooms. Some of them had lofts. In fact, all of them had lofts, I think. So you can see they're lovely facilities. Each of the unit owners got to pick the finishes, both the color, the exterior colors, and all the flooring and other finishes that they wanted. Phase 2 was completed in August and September of last year, and it included the installation of 17 new units. And phase 3, the final phase, was completed in December, where 19 new units were installed, and 3 travel trailers. 3 households chose to replace their units with travel trailers. Some of the units, as you can see here in the picture, are quite large. Some of these are 3-bedroom, 2-bath units with actually a living room and a large eat-in kitchen area. So these are pictures of some of the residents on the walkthrough, and I would be remiss if I didn't call out Emma Gonzalez, who is a key member of this project team. She worked closely from day one, over 4 years, literally, with all of the residents to ensure that they were kept informed, they understood what the process was, and she was there to welcome them with their keys when they took ownership of their new units. This is move-in day. A lot of people were happy to get their keys. And again, some more pictures of the residents. And then finally, Emma and a team of some of the folks from the county. There were actually about 20 of us who worked on this project over the course of 4 years, ranging from attorneys to people who have housing and banking expertise, to Emma and her team who reached out to the staff, to all of to a group of folks in social services who handled the relocation of the assistance. We had the wonderful opportunity to go out around the holidays when the project was completed and visit with some of these folks. And among other things, this new homeowner told us how much she loved her home and how happy she was to be there. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Peggy. Council members, if you have questions, please go ahead and ask.
Looks great. Wow, what a difference. And I remember it seems longer, 4 years, ago when the problem was highlighted, and I think it was during the flooding during the winter, but looks excellent. My question, Peggy, is how will this now be maintained? Was there some agreement to hire a special company that's going to maintain the buildings, or what's the responsibility on the
homeowners? These are their
homeowners
homes.
completely?
They
okay.
they own these units,
Okay.
and the county facilitated their purchase through this low-interest loan program.
Okay.
The park is privately owned, and it is the responsibility of the park owner to maintain the infrastructure within the park.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Yes.
The park's privately owned. The owner, is there something to keep them from raising the space rent beyond a reasonable amount each year? Because I know sometimes people get into an affordable housing situation, but they're on a fixed income, and the landlord thinks their land is appreciating way more than whatever. So do we have like modest rent control or something to control that?
Yes. County has had rent control for mobile home parks for about 10 years.
Great.
The other thing that I'd mention that the county has done is that land that we changed our zoning ordinances, so lands that are mobile home parks can only be used for mobile home parks or for affordable housing.
Nice.
Which brings me to my question. Is this being looked at like a prototype of, or an example of the possibilities for other sites in the county to kind of like maybe develop into something like this?
I would think that this was a very complicated project that took obviously a long time to do. We would look at each opportunity individually to assess what the potential was. We would have to have a property owner that would be willing to work with us. The length of time it took, a lot of that time was negotiation with a private property owner.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to remark that next door, there's a community meeting about another mobile home park threatened with closure. And I believe that's in Redwood City.
That's my understanding, that it's not in the county unincorporated area.
But this is a success story and a model of what a government partnership and good leadership from Warren Slocum was able to accomplish. And I'm hoping the best for the folks inside the Redwood City jurisdiction that are in the similar plight that these poor people were 5 years ago or whatever.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Peggy. Thank you. Is there any public comment on this item?
No public comment.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 6, related to the Census 2020, the outreach and recruitment, a presentation by Emma Gonzalez and the Census team.
Emma talks real loud, but we'll be fine.
Good evening, council members and residents. My name is Emma Gonzalez, and I'm with the County of San Mateo Office of Community Affairs and the Census Manager. 14 days. It's 14 days before each of you will receive your invitation to complete the upcoming Census 2020. There's a great deal of coordination from the national, state, and regional census efforts to avoid duplication so that every single one of you can participate in the census. And there's much at risk. And so tonight we're going to tell you about what you can expect, because it really is 9 questions, but will impact the next 10 years. And we really need every single one of you, your neighbors, your friends, to complete the upcoming census. What's potentially at risk here? and you're hearing a lot about this earlier, is there's no matter how important the message, no matter how many times we broadcast it, if it's not heard and understood, and the risk of losing money and your voice in San Mateo County if you don't participate. The plan takes a strategic approach designed to make sure every resident hears the message, they understand it, and that they will be motivated to complete it. And these are some of the things that are at risk when you have a undercount. And those include affordable housing, public transportation, traffic, and then less support to families, schools, health services, and access to those health services, and emergency planning. Again, these are critical services, and these are the things that we all deserve, but you have to complete your census so that you're counted. It's really your voice to be heard, and your voice at the table. So I wanted to just walk you through what to expect. Again, in 14 days, you will be invited. So in 14 days, you can have your count, your voice heard and participated in the census. And there's 9 simple questions. So here, what you'll first see, and I'm going to go to the side here, is what you'll receive is an invitation to complete your census. 88% of San Mateo County residents will receive an invitation to complete it online. So when you receive it, it'll look very similar to this, and it'll be an invitation, and you'll have a login number. The login number will be your identification number that when you go online, you will complete. It'll look very similar to this. You can't really see because of the lighting here, but when you go online, when you log in your number, it will ask you to verify, is this your address? And is this your home? You'll say yes or no. If you're homeless or unstable, you're able to log in and identify where do you live. And if you're living with a friend or living at a park, or if you're living at a shelter, you can identify it really clearly by, I live in Redwood City, I live under this bridge, et cetera, and give as much detailed information from somebody who has unstable housing. It's important one of the questions here is, how many people live with you? It's key here to include every single person that lives in your home, regardless of relationship. This is where we get a large amount of people that are undercounted. So if you have somebody living with you on a couch, or in a bedroom, in a garage, this is where you count all the individuals that live in your home. This is where we want to ensure, and that 9-month-old child or that 2-week-old child, we want to make sure that we include everyone. Because for every single person counted, it's $1,000 per person for the next 10 years, which is an equate to up to $10,000. Now, the long-term effect is if you don't count 600 people, that's about a potential $6 million loss. So the numbers really equate and are very critical as we go through this process. So again, how many people live with you? And please identify every single person that lives with you at that time. Are there any additional people that live that were not included? It allows you to go back and say, am I missing anybody? You know, maybe I forgot my aunt, my uncle that lives with me too. Or a friend. You could go back and include that. The next question that it'll ask you, is this a house, apartment, or a mobile home? It's a type of house do you have? And you just check the box. They'll ask you for a telephone number. The telephone number is just in case they need to go back and ask any follow-up questions. Now we'll start talking about person number 1, whoever's completing that. And here you'll talk about your name, your first, your middle, and your last name. Pretty simple, right? What's your sex? What's your age and the date of birth? Are you Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin? You get to select one of those. What's your race? You'll get to identify what race it is. For the first time in here, it's interesting, I'd like to highlight, is that we now have a Samoan race in here. Histories before, we've never had that. And they've only identified, somebody from a Pacific Islander had to fall under an Asian race. For the first time, now we have it indicated on the census. It's a sense of validation. It's a sense of being, their voice, their story. And this really is our voice, our story, our community. Really look at that as census is our voice, our story, our community. That's about as simple as it gets. Then you'll repeat that these set of same questions for every single person that lives in your house. The sex, the age, date of birth, Hispanic, race, and your relationship to that first person, number one. Is it your friend? Is it your relative? Is it your grandmother, your grandfather, your cousin, whoever that may be? You just say what that relationship is to that very first person. And some people have 10, 15 people living with you, and that's okay. None of this information gets reported anywhere but to the Bureau, and it all remains confidential. So again, these are the same questions that get repeated for every single person in your household. As you notice, it does not ask a citizenship question. That is not asked. Again, 9 simple questions, but will impact the next 10 years. Then you get to submit. And then you're counted. And then you'll have your confirmation number there, and that confirms that you've been counted. It's a pretty simple process. Like I said, in 14 days, you'll each receive your invitation to complete the census. Here's a quick timeline of what will happen. In 14 days, you'll receive your invitation. On April 1st, it's National Census Day. And so we're really encouraging everybody to, as soon as you get that invitation, get online and complete it. Let's show San Mateo's counted. Let's all be counted, and really encourage your neighbors to be counted. Because by the end of April, first week and the beginning of May, you'll have self-response numerators coming to your home for those that have not completed their census, and they will be coming to the home to help complete it. So if you don't want, I know I don't want anybody coming to my house. And if you don't want somebody coming to your home, complete the census early, and then you won't have a census taker come to your home. And the good thing is that we are going to have strategically places located where if you need help to complete it, we can provide that assistance. The library will be one, Multicultural Institute, Nuestra Casa. Will have 55 identified places strategically throughout San Mateo County that will help assist complete the census questionnaire for you. But it goes all the way through July 31st, but really by beginning of May, enumerators will be coming to the residents and helping them come to their doors. So the message is very simple. I want everybody to walk away with the message being very simple. Everyone counts and everyone matters. And so really, we want to make sure that all the resources come back to our community. We want to make sure that we have the proper infrastructure that we all deserve, but we need to make sure everyone's counted for San Mateo County. So what I look to you today as North Fair Oaks Council members and leaders is to talk about census. Every time you're around a person with 2 or more people, talk about census. Encourage your neighbors, your family, and friends to respond early and to complete the census. As well as if you have social media or if you have a message, utilize social media and talk about it and bring it up. And we have a number of videos and information. I have resources in the back that I invite you to use and share. And I see Juan Carlos has some there that he'll be distributing at his school. We have over 30 posters that are available in multi-languages in 5 different languages. And if you can put them up, great. We want to get that word out. And again, incorporate it into your everyday conversation and your message and your speaking engagements as you're out speaking in your capacity. And again, share your census posters within your community members. I have a short video that I wanted to share with you.
My grandma always says everyone counts, and everyone who lives with us is special. Like my aunt, who took me on my first bus ride to the library, or my older cousin, who walked me to my first day of school, even my mom's friend and her baby who live with us.
The census informs funding for schools, roads, healthcare, and more. So count everyone in your home, including all children on the 2020 census. It's your chance to help them for the next 10 years. You can respond online, by phone, or by mail. Shape your future. Start here. Learn more at 2020census.gov.
It was a short video. I like it.
¿Puede una sola persona hacer la diferencia? Sí puede. Cada 10 años, el censo te da el poder de hacer la diferencia. El censo determina nuestros fondos locales para construir nuevas calles y carreteras, invertir en nuevas y mejores escuelas para nuestros niños, programas para después de la escuela.
¡La escalera!
Y cuidado para los ancianos. Todos deben de completar su encuesta por teléfono, llamando al 1-800-354-7271 y un representante tomará tu información. En línea, en census.gov, podrás llenar tu información. Por correo, cada casa recibirá una forma, solo llena y regresa. O por una visita segura y confidencial. Ciudadano o no ciudadano, cuando se trata del censo, la ley protege su información. Llena tu forma del censo 2020. Hay que asegurar que nuestras voces sean escuchadas.
Thank you very much, and if I'll take any questions. Again, as the video said, citizens, non-citizens alike, backgrounds, no backgrounds, criminal. This is the one and only opportunity we, as residents, could be part of and make our voices heard and be a part of the change. So I encourage every single one of you to complete your census and be a part of the change. Any questions?
Thank you, Emma. I do have several questions, but I'd like to open the floor for council members if they have questions first.
Through the chair, is the Sheriff's Department conducting census with incarcerated?
We do that. The
Is that-
Census Bureau does that.
Oh, okay.
We have to do that with all facilities, correct?
Mobile homes, people that have RVs and stuff on the street, they're probably not going to get mail delivery, but you're going to have people hit those.
Correct. We'll be doing enumerator counts with our unstable housing.
Okay.
Through the chair, you mentioned after May 1st, if people do not respond electronically, there'll be the census takers going to homes. Is that correct?
Yes, that is. It'll be estimated about May 13th.
Will those paid or volunteers be bilingual if they come into Spanish-speaking community?
They are paid positions. We have approximately 800 paid positions. We're about 92% of that goal now. They start about $31 an hour. So if anybody wants to apply, go out and apply. They're flexible hours. And they are looking for residents of the county so that they could go into the community in which they could speak the language of that particular community.
Okay, thank you.
Where they can apply for the be part of the census.
smccensus.org, and there's a direct link there. If you type in smccensus.org, we have a direct link to the online application. And if you want to volunteer, the same website, smccensus.org. If you want to be a champion, smccensus.org.
In terms of homeless individuals, indigents, so they can list some sort of address, whether there's a park or a street or whatever. But how would they get the information? How would they get counted in the
So
first
they
place?
could go online and complete their own form, or when we're doing enumerators, we'll be going out to the field 2 days, and we'll do a large enumerator count and
So
working directly with our unstable housing.
Okay. So I guess they would need to somehow catch the news and learn about these if they don't, or something, right? Since they don't have a specific address where they can be reached at.
Correct, but we'll also be doing similar to like a homeless count, going out and working with individuals to complete their online survey.
Oh, I see. Great.
There'll be experts and field staff that will be going out on, it's a specific time of day, and they will be paid through the Bureau to help in doing that count.
Thank you. And in case of people who live in garages or ADUs that are not registered, or even their vehicles, I guess the mail would arrive to the homeowner's name, but the homeowner doesn't necessarily have to count the people who's living in his garage or et cetera, right?
Correct. So that's a great question. Thank you for asking. And so it will go to the household, but let's say two people, there's somebody that lives in the garage and somebody that lives in the primary home. We would encourage that they work together to say, am I going to be counted under the primary one? If not, that individual could also go online without a numerator code and just say, this is where I live, and I live in the ADU unit, and nobody's going to go back, whether it's legal or illegal unit. It's about counting them, and then it's just working together with that primary household to say, are we going to submit it separately or together? It's better to be an overcount versus an undercount.
Right. And my last question is in terms of gender. How important is that question? How important is for people to respond to that question, since many are reluctant to identify
And
themselves?
that particular question isn't going to require a follow-up. If somebody chooses not to identify, that won't require, that it won't be counted.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions? Thanks very much, Emma.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment on this item?
No public comment.
Thank you, Mitzi. We will now go on to item number 7, the proposed ordinance prohibiting parking of oversized vehicles. Presentation by Mr. Joe Lococo. He's the Deputy Director of Public Works.
Good evening. This is Joe Lococo with the Department of Public Works. I'm pleased to be here tonight. Council members, members of the public, we want to talk briefly about a change to the current ordinance that we're considering, and then specifically a location where we believe that implementation of this change might make good sense. So to start with, there currently already is an oversized vehicle parking ordinance with the county. So we have the ability through the existing ordinance system to go ahead and limit vehicles over 6 feet in height on a specific block or at a specific location if there's an issue with that. The ordinance location again, or the oversized vehicle ordinance as it currently stands, speaks strictly to vehicles over 6 feet in height. The amendment to the ordinance that we're asking, or that we're considering right now and we're asking for feedback on, is whether to include a clause within the ordinance that also allows, on a case-by-case basis, and basically it would be with the support of that particular community and block, to go ahead and include restrictions of trailers on vehicles or parked on a block. So there are exceptions to this ordinance. I'll read through real quickly what those are. A trailer could be allowed on a park, as could oversized vehicles, under the following conditions. And that is if a vehicle is actively loading or unloading, if it's being used to provide public utility service to a property, for emergencies, or if somebody is waiting for a tow operator for no longer than 8 hours response to an emergency, or wheelchair accessible van. So both for the current ordinance, which is for oversized vehicles, and any amendment that would add trailers to the ordinance, these uses would be permitted. So the location specifically that has been brought to our attention and for which we're looking for some feedback is a single block of Huntington Avenue between Pacific Avenue and Dumbarton Avenue. The following pictures are just a handful of pictures on this block. So this gives you an example of the certain things that you will see out there right now. Some of these would already be, if we were to adopt on this street a restriction for oversized vehicles, that would apply to some of these cases, such as the RV. There are cases where both the trailer and the oversized amendment to, they both could apply. So in this case where you see a fifth wheel, that would be considered both an oversized vehicle and a trailer vehicle. And a trailer vehicle would be basically anything that can be pulled, any detachable unit, so there is no strict definition on the size of that. These are additional examples also on this same block. You have basically on the bottom left, that would be a potential restriction based on oversized vehicle. The upper left, that too would be an oversized vehicle restriction. Again, if it was connected and or disconnectable and you could pull it, then that would be subject to the trailer ban or the trailer ordinance. So examples of things that would not be restricted with a trailer ban are below. So this is strictly for on-street parking. So the photo below, where the trailer is on the private property, that would not be restricted. On the picture above, again, if work were actively in progress, there would be no restriction. So what we're hoping to do tonight is just to get feedback from the council. If it's not tonight, we certainly welcome feedback after tonight. We do want to get some, just get a sense for whether the amendment to the ordinance would be basically well received and supported. If in fact that was well received, that would be an amendment that we could move forward with. It wouldn't necessarily apply to a specific location, but we could take a look at specific locations, and if there were support on a block-by-block basis for such restrictions, then we could look to implement those. And then secondly, what we're hoping to do is get feedback either tonight or after tonight on whether or not, if in fact we move forward with the amendment to the proposal, if in fact restrictions should be specifically implemented on the block of Huntington Avenue, again between Pacific Avenue and Dumbarton Avenue. If in fact the general consensus is yes, we would still go to the community. So there is no plan to just move forward without reaching out to the folks on that individual block, and to also get a sense for whether restrictions on that block are supported specifically by those who live on the block. That said, Huntington Avenue was kind of called out as a potential location just because it's been reported that there are some issues, and we've identified specific issues at that location. So with that, I'm willing to take questions and happy to receive any feedback.
Yeah, please ask questions, council members.
Are these avenues within the county? Are they considered like, within the boundaries of the county? Huntington Pacific Avenue, correct? Yeah. Okay.
Correct. So the ordinance would be a San Mateo County unincorporated area specific ordinance.
So we've had an ongoing situation on a city street impacting North Fair Oaks, that's a really big gray area. It's the Spring Street between 2nd Avenue and 5th Avenue. And that is wall-to-wall trailers and utility trucks. And so where does that street fall into? It's a city street, but the impact is North Fair Oaks residents.
Yeah, so it doesn't specifically fall within the ordinance. We are aware of that location, and we've had some dialogue with the city of Redwood City. I think there can continue to be some dialogue with the city on that, but ultimately, any restrictions would have to be implemented by the city.
And just to clarify, this ordinance would be for the whole county of San Mateo, and you're just using Huntington as an example, right?
Correct. The ordinance, so there are two questions, and the one is the ordinance which would be potentially implementable countywide. And then if we were to adopt that, change the ordinance, there would be no locations where that's necessarily implemented until we go through a process. But we do have one location. We did specifically want to just reach out and see what the feedback was on that location.
What sort of suggestions would you have for residents who happen to have such vehicles exceeding the height?
Yeah, so, it really kind of depends on almost location by location. And there's some potential pros and cons with implementing. I think looking at the potential positive results from a trailer or an oversized vehicle ban is that they get pulled off the streets. And so if they get pulled off the streets, hopefully they're parked on driveways, essentially where they don't really clutter the street or the competing parking on the street. The potential negative consequence, which we're sensitive to as well, is that if this were implemented on a block, what's to stop somebody if they don't really have the room they feel like on their driveway or in another convenient location from just parking around the corner? So I think with that in mind, I do think that if we were to have some proposals, we would also try to get a sense for the lay of the land. And so instead of just looking at the one street where maybe we get a petition in, we'd also first take a look at the adjoining blocks and try to get a sense for whether the ordinance on the one block might have an impact on the other block. In that case, it may be that we do outreach on 1, 2, 3, or 4 blocks instead of on just one block.
Do you know if some cities here and within the county of San Mateo, do you know if they require registered business owners to provide parking for their own large vehicles, or that is an usual occurrence?
I don't know, and I think one thing that is you see in some instances in North Fair Oaks, and I think it was visible in the pictures, is you could in some instances very well have people who basically they have a business. It's a truck, maybe they've got the plywood sides, they're using that truck for business. And so a potential negative consequence is if you're driving the person whose business is, he's operating his business from his home to a point where he needs to look for parking elsewhere, that can be a hardship. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I think the intent would be to selectively identify locations where this is a problem that can kind of resolve some of the parking challenges that are occurring in a specific area.
Right, and just as a comment, this proposal is very appealing for North Fair Oaks, particularly because we have always had issues with parking, and large vehicles, not only do they take more space, but also they create unsafe conditions for residential traffic, since, you know, trucks tend to be wider. And so many times those large vehicles are just moved from one block to the next, to the next, to the next, and nobody knows what the real use of that vehicle is, if, you know, if in fact there is one. But in any case, it is. It sounds like the community could benefit with this ordinance in that regard.
Yeah, and I think the proposal in part is on the table because we do recognize that a lot of these vehicles that would be targeted by this are vehicles that are not moving on a daily basis. Oftentimes they're sitting there for 2 or 3 days, and as you indicate, after 2 or 3 days, they might just move to another location and then simply come back.
Go ahead, Blair.
I'll just put it there. So the county already has an ordinance to regulate oversized vehicle parking. The proposed amendment is just adding the trailer piece as something else to regulate in addition to oversized vehicles that are already regulated but not enforced under.
So basically the ordinance itself just allows for the possibility of implementing these restrictions. So there are no restrictions at any specific locations as a result of the ordinance being in place or being amended. So what would have to happen is, with the ordinance in place, we have the ability to then identify certain locations or to respond to residents on a certain street who have indicated a hardship because of these issues. Recently, we did adopt or did implement parking restrictions elsewhere on the coast. Basically, the oversized vehicle restriction on Airport Street out in Half Moon Bay, because that was a large block that was used pretty much just as overflow parking for many, many large vehicles. So having the ordinance in place doesn't mean that it's, that doesn't create the parking restriction yet. It just allows for the possibility of that parking restriction.
I think the public street is a public good that everyone has to share in. And in my neighborhood, I'm west of the train tracks, but people have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cars or various family members, and every street, if it wasn't for street cleaning day, it would be crazy. And even with that, people were just shuffling around. So I think we do need to address the concerns. Have the residents spoken up, or is that what you're waiting to do? Is people have reported a couple violations on this particular street, and you want to follow up with like a house-by-house survey? Would you be in favor of?
Yeah, I believe there's been some dialogue, but no, we have not reached out largely to the residents on the block. But if in fact there was support for this ordinance amendment, then the plan would be to send out basically a questionnaire, a survey to the folks on Huntington Avenue, unless there was objection from either the council tonight. If they voice some objection, then we could take a look elsewhere. We could still have the ordinance amendment made, but not necessarily look at a specific location. But we do believe that on Huntington Avenue specifically, that there might be a problem that we can improve. So the intent then would be to specifically send out a survey to each of the folks on that street, basically question them as to whether or not they would support essentially implementing the conditions of this ordinance, so the parking restrictions that are permitted by this ordinance.
I would not object to moving forward in that direction. In fact, I'd even support asking Redwood City to do their part on their street adjacent to us.
And so if there aren't any further questions from council members, we do have council action on this item, and I can entertain a motion to support this ordinance. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Would these oversized vehicles would they be able to park in parking areas like, say, that parking that we have where the mural's at?
Yeah, so I believe
Off street.
the challenge there is, yes, they could park there, but there's some parking limitations. So within that lot, I believe there is a restriction that would prevent 24-hour, 7-day-a-week parking. I think overnight, the vehicles are technically required to move. I don't remember the exact times, but I think it might be something like between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m.
Okay. Thank you.
Again, I can entertain, well, actually, I have public comment before the motion. So is there any public comment for this item?
No public comment.
Thank you. So now I can entertain a motion for this ordinance from council members.
I move to support the proposal as reported by staff.
Council member makes a motion to support this ordinance as stated. Do I have a second for that motion?
I second that motion.
We have a second. Mitzi, could you please take vote on that?
Of course. Chair Everardo Rodriguez.
Yes.
Beatriz Cerrillo.
Yes.
Juan Carlos Prado.
Yes.
Linda Lopez.
Yes.
Blair Whitney.
Yes.
Jennifer Ruiz. Rosaura Lopez.
Yes.
Youth Member Francis Santos.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Next, we will have item number 8 of tonight's agenda. It'll be a report on health budget presented by Chief Luis Rogers and CEO, let me see the name, Kunapili.
Good evening. Good evening, council members, members of the public, county staff. I'm Louise Rogers. I'm Chief of County Health. And Dr. Konopoli is the CEO of San Mateo Medical Center and Clinics. And we're very pleased to be here to brief you on the county health budget, particularly the challenges that the county health budget faces and how we're proposing to resolve them. And when we were invited to come, we were asked to really focus on this community and the impacts here. So our plan is I'm going to speak briefly about the larger issues, and Dr. Konopoli is going to try to address some of the concerns that we've already heard about Fair Oaks impacts. And then, of course, we'd like to answer your questions and hear from members of the public, and then we can answer more questions. So to take a step back, County Health operates a wide variety of services, as you all know, including the community, the Fair Oaks Clinic here in this community, but also the medical center in San Mateo and other clinics around the county. And we have been wrestling with a financial problem in our budget for several years now. And the problem is basically the result of the fact that Our costs have continued to go up year after year for understandable reasons, because it's very expensive for our workers to live in the Bay Area. And our revenues, the money that comes in to pay for the services, has really been flat, and in some cases it's been declining. And most of the money that the county health receives is from the federal and state government. It's not really supported wholly by the county. The county is very generous and provides about $177 million of our budget. But our total budget of $838 million is mostly coming from other sources. And so when we started to experience the gap and the problem that we have to solve, it really isn't possible for the county to solve the problem for us. It's really something the county leadership asked us to bring forward proposals to address. And so we have been doing that. The size of the gap is $57 million. And on January 28th at the Board of Supervisors, we brought forward some initial proposals about how to close the gap. And we will be also having a second public hearing on March 10th at 9 a.m. in the morning, also in the Government Center before the Board of Supervisors, to hear more comments from the public about the plan that we're bringing forward. And so I'll just say briefly that the plan that we're bringing forward includes some reductions in our costs, and it includes the elimination of 130 county health positions, and it includes the elimination of some contracts. The major reductions that we are bringing forward are focused on the San Mateo campus, where our main hospital is. For example, we're proposing to eliminate part of the pharmacy service there. So we operate a pharmacy on that campus, and we're proposing to scale that pharmacy back, and instead for the pharmacy services that are provided there to be provided through private pharmacies in the community like Safeway and CVS. So that's a significant impact. Another large impact also on the San Mateo campus is that we'll be proposing to reduce the inpatient psychiatry service that we offer there. We now offer on any given day about 29 beds. The inpatient psychiatry service would be reduced by 12 beds to 17 beds. The third impact that we're proposing is to eliminate our ophthalmology service and instead to provide ophthalmology services through private providers in the community who are contracted to the health plan of San Mateo. So we have struggled with how to reduce our costs and close the gap. And those are some of the reductions that are happening that are going to impact, they're going to impact our clients. We don't believe that this community and the people that are served in this community through our clinic are going to be substantially impacted by those changes. And we also believe that the services that we're eliminating on our main campus are going to be available to members of the community, the folks that are getting those services, through other ways. We're really not happy to have to reduce any of our services. And we're only making these proposals out of necessity because we don't have a way to close the $57 million gap. And then I should also say that we are proposing to raise our revenues and to try to bring in more money to close the gap. And some of those changes are causing concern because they involve changing how we work. And we employ almost 3,000 people, and the way that most of our money comes in is through the work that we do. And we have determined that in order to bring in more money, we're going to have to change how we work. And some of those changes have caused concerns, particularly from our workforce. We don't believe any of those changes are going to have a negative impact on the community. We welcome everyone's feedback about them, but we wouldn't be bringing them forward if we thought that they would. So I think that's all I'm going to say kind of about the larger budget issue. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Canopoli to say more about the particular Fair Oaks community issues that we think people might be concerned about. Then we can hear your questions and answer more.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you again for inviting us to be here today. As Ms. Rogers said, I'm going to try and focus on the things that we anticipate there may be the most interest or concern about, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you see in about anything you see in the proposal. First, let me start with those revenue-generating, model-changing opportunities. As Ms. Rogers said, we are looking at opportunities to improve, opportunities to boost revenue. One of our biggest challenges is that our capacity to serve patients is severely impacted. It leaves about 17,000 people that we could provide care to not getting care. And the core reason for that is that our model of care really drives all of our work through our primary care providers. And that's whether that's a physician or a nurse practitioner, we rely on them to do the bulk of the work. There's a national shortage of primary care providers, and that's no different locally. There just aren't enough to provide care to every patient in that old model. However, our clinics are populated with extremely talented clerical staff, medical assistants, nurses, social workers, pharmacists. And so part of our change is to actually employ that entire team, expand our reach around patients by using the entire team to provide care. So that's a big change for those of us who have worked many years in the old model, and it isn't without its own pains of growth, but we believe that will better serve the community. The Fair Oaks clinic was chosen, Fair Oaks Health Center was chosen as the very first clinic to go through that improvement work. It's never easy to be first, and we're feeling those growing pains. But I think, as Ms. Rogers said, that is going to be what takes us into the future and allows us to expand our reach to all of those clients who currently can't get care. Bringing any service reductions forward was very difficult, and as was stated, we wouldn't do it except as a last resort. Every service we provide we think is important. Every staff member is valuable. So when we looked at service reductions, we really focused on those things that we thought where we could minimize the impact on staff and clients. And Ms. Rogers has mentioned some of those. Let me talk about some that may be of most interest to the community. First, talking a little bit more about the elimination of ophthalmology services at San Mateo Medical Center. I just want to make sure to distinguish that from optometry services. So optometry is the testing of vision, provision of glasses, routine eye care. We are not proposing any reductions in optometry. In fact, we are expanding optometry services. Ophthalmology services are surgical diseases of the eye. Typically, they take care of glaucoma and they take care of cataracts. That is what we are proposing, that we rely more on community resources and not provide it at San Mateo Medical Center. The other reduction that we've had to bring forward is a reduction in our reliance on what are termed limited term positions. Limited term positions are a classification within the county that has a 3-year commitment to the county. They can only last for 3 years. Over the last several years, the medical center has used that staffing, that temporary staffing, for a variety of expansions, pilots, trying out new experiments throughout our system. It's been highly beneficial. Many of those staff members have gone on to permanent positions with us. But as we face this challenge, it was impossible to continue that temporary staffing going forward. And so since these were always temporary, basically eliminating them means that we have notified the staff that their assignment, their time with us is going to end early at the end of this fiscal year. That affects approximately 15 staff members across our clinics. So within our budget proposals, those are the two main things that I wanted to highlight that people may feel impacts at Fair Oaks Health Center. But there are a couple of other things that I know have raised concern that I wanted to address. The first is the infectious disease clinic at Fair Oaks Health Center. So the infectious disease clinic is run technically through public health and not the medical center. It's a partnership between public health and the medical center. It has, over the years, the number of patients that it serves has dwindled to about 40 patients. One of our biggest challenges in expanding our reach to as many clients as possible is space. And so that infectious disease clinic used 4 rooms, half a day, every Thursday. Our estimation is that those same rooms that are currently serving 40 people could serve over 300 people if we used it in our broader ambulatory work. Our public health leadership met with medical center leadership to talk about this challenge, and what they decided was that the best solution was to relocate those resources back to San Mateo Medical Center, where the main infectious disease clinic is, and work with each individual client to address any challenges they have in transportation or anything else. In addition, public health will be stationing a social worker at Fair Oaks Health Center 2 days a week to continue to be a local contact point for any of those clients. And we'll work with every client, up to and including if there is a client for whom it is impossible to get to San Mateo Medical Center, we are working with local providers at Fair Oaks Health Center to continue their care there. The other concern, and this is not a budget proposal, this is an operational decision that was made in partnership with public health. The other concern that I have heard raised that also is not a budget proposal, but is an operational evaluation, is senior care services at Fair Oaks Health Center. Several years ago, we have a senior care clinic at San Mateo Medical Center at the 39th Avenue San Mateo campus. It was expanded to Fair Oaks Health Center several years ago using grant money from Sequoia Healthcare District. That grant has now expired, and so senior care leadership evaluated the long-term sustainability of providing senior care services. And what they determined is, with the grant, we were able to provide a day and a half of services at Fair Oaks Health Center. Without the grant, we can provide a full day. So we will continue to provide a full day of senior care services, which at this point is more than any other non-San Mateo clinic in our system, and we'll continue to evaluate that. Because these are operational and not budget-related decisions, the resources aren't going anywhere. They're being reallocated. So if we find in the future that there is a need, if patients are being disproportionately affected, we can always bring those resources back. But we feel that for now, this is the best decision. So those were the things that I wanted to formally cover, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for coming and to inform us about some of these changes. I'll open the floor to council members. If you have any questions, concerns, or comments, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Ever. Can you speak about this using an entire team to provide the care, because you'll have less staff, so you want to use the entire team. What is an entire team?
Thanks. That's a great question. So first, I want to be clear that the staffing reductions that impact the clinics are in this limited term category, so it is very small. Really, when we made reductions in staffing, it really was associated with services we were no longer going to do. So I don't want to leave the impression that somehow the reason to go to team-based care is because we've reduced staffing. The reason to go to team-based care is that there are not enough primary care providers to provide care in the old model. So using a team, what that means is that in the model that is in the process of being designed, is that every team member has a role, whether that is nursing, taking on more of the chronic disease management, whether that is medical assistants helping with more of the preventative care, so making sure that every patient has gotten their screening tests, assisting them in making sure that they've gotten screening questionnaires, ensuring that if a patient doesn't need to see a provider, so doesn't need to see their nurse practitioner or their primary care provider, that they still get everything that they need. That may be visiting with a nurse and getting their medications adjusted for high blood pressure. That may be getting deeper and better education around their chronic diseases from that same nurse. Also having those pharmacists, social workers, the rest of the team really helping to coordinate the care, really expanding the reach that we can't have when we rely solely on physicians and nurse practitioners who, in our current model, can only see a certain number of patients every 15 to 20 minutes in the course of the day. And in fact, what we find is that, and I feel a little better about saying this because I'm also a primary care provider, that it's really hard to stay on top of everything when all you have is 15 minutes with somebody and you're responsible for ensuring their blood pressure is under control, their blood sugar is under control, that they've been screened for depression, that they've done their colon cancer screening, that their pap smear is up. I could go on and on. In fact, the team at Fair Oaks has identified that there are at least 63 things that everybody needs done. To have one person, one member of that team solely responsible for all of those things getting done is a recipe for failure. So getting the entire team involved and dividing up those responsibilities is really the goal.
I thought job descriptions divide responsibilities.
They absolutely do.
So how would this impact your job description? Say you want to work for the health department in this area. I mean, I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So all of the work lives within the limits of our job classifications and legal requirements. So we're not asking anybody to go outside of their classifications or the legal requirements. But everyone has tremendous capabilities. Every one of our every one of our staff members is committed to giving our clients the best care possible. So this model allows them to really grow within their classification, grow within what legal abilities they have. There is a lot more than a nurse can do than we may have previously asked them to do. There's a lot more that a medical assistant can do than we may have previously asked them to do, but that is not a limitation of the classification and that is not a limitation of the law.
I guess, thank you for that. My concern is accessibility. The clinic exists and was created and established to bring access to the community around health issues. And I would hate to see anyone's access being taken away. So that's my big concern. My second concern is if some of the services are going to be referred to private providers, is that patient going to have to scramble around to find out if that provider accepts, the health, what do you call it? Is it Medi-Cal? No? Yeah. Right. So, I mean, I'm concerned, again, it's a accessibility issue.
Yeah, no, that I completely appreciate that. So the only service that would be of concern with respect to that is ophthalmology.
Ophthalmology, okay.
And ophthalmology has a broad Medi-Cal base across the county. So we would work, first of all, to ensure that we have adequate contractual relationships with enough providers to provide access to our clients. In addition, the burden is really on us as a system to get the patient there, not on the patient to figure out who takes their insurance. And that's the reason that we have network manuals where we can go and look and see who's taking the insurance, and we can work with the health plan to ensure that those are up to date and that if there are any challenges with access, that we can address them.
Thank you.
Touch upon.
I just want to add one little thing to this. I mean, your point about access is really one of the drivers for our trying to change, because we're actually not providing access currently to all of the people who need access. And so the goal is to provide more access. And in fact, if we're not successful doing that, we'll have to change what we do again. Because the health plan of San Mateo, the people who pay us, expect us to meet certain standards, and we're not meeting them now. So we have to try to do something different. We're open to trying multiple experiments and changing again if we're not on the right path, but the goal is to actually provide more access.
Yeah, to touch upon the two themes that Linda asked about, just, for the general information of all the council members who may have not known about these. So we first learned about this new plan implementation as a response from labor unions, grievances and concerns brought by this new plan implementation. They reached out to us and they sent us a letter. So that was Linda's first question. And then the other point about accessibility, I'd like to set up a proper background for this discussion about the services this plan is implementing. So North Fair Oaks is largely a minority immigrant community with varying degrees of language skills and communication challenges, with nearly a non-existent record of seeing a doctor regularly due to lack of resources or access. It also has lots of individuals often having to work two jobs to make ends meet, often battling loneliness and depression, with high incidences of diabetes, hypertension, asthma, and other health issues, and with a high percentage of this population under the poverty line, and often also facing legal status issues, which bring an assortment of other personal, socioeconomic, and political issues. And so with all of these, I know that you are trying to implement a plan that doesn't affect San Mateo County population in any a specific negative, impactful way. However, for this community, really, since this is not a regular community, like, say, for example, San Carlos or Belmont or any other community, this community really is, many of the members of this community are at their borderline, and even a tiny little touch or hurdle on how they get medical services it can really push them, over the border in terms of their health. So one question that I had for Chief Rogers, and correct me if I got this wrong. So you said that even if the county wanted to come up with the funding to close this gap, so this wouldn't be possible, Or would it be if the county decided tomorrow that, they want to foot the bill?
No, it's not possible. I've been working on this for 2 years. I've met with all of the board members. I've met with many, many people. We have to have a plan that we move forward that offers a variety of strategies. And so we're doing the best that we can. And we welcome your suggestions about other ideas, and we welcome your suggestions about tweaks to the plan that you think would be important to consider. We also welcome your comment at the next hearing on March 10th. The gap, which is currently $57 million, will go up. Every year it goes up. Last year it went up by 14 million, because every year we are trying to support all of the work, and the cost of living goes up, and we're trying to offer fair wages, and so are all of our providers who we contract with. So I think I can pretty confidently say that I don't have a signal that the county is going to be closing this gap. And so we have to have ideas. The good news is that there have been many ideas that have been brought forward by our staff, by other stakeholders, even in the last month, as we've looked at some of the details of our plans. And so we remain hopeful that the ideas can keep getting better. Also, I want to just say that it really matters what happens in Washington. That census really matters. Everyone should get counted. And healthcare is not it is not being aggressively supported in Washington right now. And so if we don't see a change there, our problem is going to get even bigger. So that's a challenge. But we really appreciate your concerns, specifically about the unique nature of this community, and we do welcome your thoughts.
And so essentially it's not a matter of money, is that what you're saying?
Well, no, there's just not enough money to fill the hole, and it keeps going up.
Right.
But it's also the political will to provide coverage for everyone who needs it in this country, and to assure that the Medicaid program is adequately funded.
Right, and so the projections that you have proposed also include some economic gains potentially, but what if some of these don't crystallize? Will there be further cuts next fiscal year, or what would happen in that case?
Well, we're really hopeful that we can all work together to make these opportunities happen. I'm not going to try to read the tea leaves, but I just think it's really important that we all work together and do our best.
Right. So if you wanted to work together with the community and, health districts and county supervisors, would there be a way for us, at least, for the council, for the people of North Fair Oaks, to support you guys in any way we can, to either request additional funding or something, or what would be the alternative for the people of North Fair Oaks to support you?
I don't have a great idea about where you could go to advocate for this, except at the voting box in Washington. I have on my agenda to meet with the Sequoia Healthcare District next week to see if they might have any interest in any part of this. I've already been engaged with others. So I think my best recommendation, and I appreciate that inquiry, and if there's additional avenues around that, I think we could bring them back, or if you have ideas, you could bring them to us. If there's a specific direction on that, I will certainly, re-engage with you all. But right now, I think the advocacy focus is it's in Washington.
And if the political climate were to change with this election,
I think that could be very helpful if whoever prevails really understood the importance of health care
But would then some of these changes be reversed, or?
Well, actually, no, we don't at this, I mean, I can't say, I don't know. I mean, at this point, what could happen as a result of a big change like that? There's certainly some very aspirational proposals out there about addressing the needs of low-income people and the needs of everyone in healthcare. So I can't say exactly what would happen if there were a favorable change. I think it would be very positive. Some of these things have to happen starting July 1. And that's why we've been planning them now for some time and having the study session before the board in January and the other one in March. So I think we are going to have to make progress starting July 1.
Go ahead, Linda.
I'm sorry, through the chair. So thank you for the information. But there's one thing I didn't hear. You want to, I'll just put it very basic. You want to cut from the bottom, yet I didn't hear anything about cutting from the top. Your administration, your $1 million consultants. So that also needs to play into the formula. But I didn't hear a word about that.
Well, let me respond.
It's a concern I have because when typically, and I'll say this as a former county employee, when the cuts are coming down, it's bottom up. It's never top down. And so I think that is, it's a concern. I just put it out there. But I do thank you for your information.
So of the 130 positions that we're eliminating, 11 of them were management, and we'll continue to look at that. I didn't kind of walk through every reduction in the memo because they weren't Fair Oaks focused in the amount of time that we had. But there are many, many reductions that impact administration, including my office. That's really where we started. We really started to avoid any direct service impacts. And what I chose to present was the client impacts or what we had heard, might be of concern in this community. But please don't take that presentation as, a sign that there are no reductions in those areas.
Thank you, Louise.
Yeah, go ahead, Blair.
I thank you for the presentation. I just want to make a comment as a consumer. A few years ago, I was hella poor and I had Medi-Cal. And I think I graduated from that. The state of California is actually doing some pretty good stuff. And last year I did Covered California. And this year I did Covered California. And people have the right to not live in fear about their health coverage, and they don't care about your background. You can get, I think I ended up paying $25 a month, and you can sign up your kids, your wife, your mother, whatever. We're not totally dependent on Washington, D.C. Sacramento's done some good stuff, and you can sign up also through Covered California. I know it may not directly help your health.
Oh, no, it does. I'm so glad you're taking a minute to just acknowledge the importance of that program, and it's great. And what Governor Newsom is promoting in terms of homelessness and all of that, there's a lot of really good stuff happening in California.
So if people are afraid about health security, they can act on their own behalf and their self-interest for a very modest amount of money and have the coverage locked in for the next 12 months. I'm pretty sure it's been worth it for me. So I'd recommend other people check it out. And there's Ravenswood in East Palo Alto helped me with the enrollment thing because it's a little kludgy on the website. I still had to call a couple times, but it worked. So I encourage
That's wonderful to
try.
hear. Really good.
Yeah, for Kaiser.
Any other questions or comments?
Excuse me. Yeah, through the chair, I understand some of the services have already started to be restricted. Is that so here at Fair Oaks Clinic?
So those operational changes have started to move forward, working with clients and starting to reallocate some of those resources. So that's the infectious disease clinic and senior care clinic.
But is that in reflection of the deficit?
That's not no. That's related to operational decisions. So like I said, the biggest challenge that Fair Oaks Health Center has is space. So being able to clear space to take care of more patients. And that infectious disease clinic was taking care of about 40 clients. We want to make sure that those 40 clients get everything that they need, but free up that space so that other people can be served. With senior care, it was the expiration of the grant that actually caused us to have to decide what to do more. Sure. Yeah. So sorry. So let me give you more details about that. So about a decade ago, we established a senior care clinic. It involves offering services to clients over the age of 65, provided by geriatricians, specially trained internal medicine physicians, typically, with wraparound services, so psychiatric support, other specialty support. Through support of Sequoia Healthcare District, we were able to expand at least the geriatrician care out into a couple of our clinics, and specifically to Fair Oaks for a day and a half. That grant has now expired, so the geriatrician will continue to come a day a week. It's the other half day where they will be serving in a different clinic.
Okay, my follow-up question is, of all the grants you mentioned, what is the efforts being made in order to find funding outside the county to fill some of these deficit gaps?
That's a great question. So there is ongoing effort. We have a foundation, the San Mateo County Health Foundation, that is actively soliciting for donations to the services that we provide. Sequoia Healthcare District, Ms. Rogers mentioned that she'll be meeting with them soon. They've been incredibly supportive. Their goal is to invest in sustainability. So their grants are short-term with the hope that you will develop a program that can go on. And the reason is that then they can shift their focus to other things. So Sequoia Healthcare District is currently supporting us in expanding dental access. So we've actually been able to expand dental hours at Fair Oaks Health Center through that support. But they had to shift those dollars in order to be able to help us to do that.
Okay, thank you for that.
Oh, yes, I do have a question. When you talk about senior health care, how many patients or how many active participants?
I would have to look up that number specific to Fair Oaks Health Center. What I can tell you is in a half day, they were serving about 6 to 8 clients.
8 clients, okay. And so when service now is scaled back to 1 full day a week, does that reflect that, if someone has a family member, does that take the form of more wait time for the next appointment? I don't understand.
So, that's a great question.
The impact
what the
on that
impact is.
particular patient.
So, in general, what we're trying to do is for clients who can go back into general primary care, they may go back into general primary care. For clients for whom they want to go and get care at San Mateo Medical Center, they can do that. But then we will continue to offer that full day with the hopes to minimize any access impact. But like I said, because this wasn't a reduction in resources, we can continue to monitor it, and if that access becomes a challenge, we can reallocate the resources again.
And if that senior member in our family, is there a shuttle or is there transportation if the services happen to be outside of the space in the clinic?
Yeah.
Will this transportation service be available so that this ongoing care, they can continue
So the
to
majority
receive it?
of those patients have Medi-Cal through the health plan of San Mateo, which has a transportation benefit, and so they can arrange for rides to any medical visit, and also through any Care Advantage program, there is usually a transportation benefit as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I know that this must be a difficult task for you, and I can't stop but feel like, and perhaps this is part of, you know, a continuation of a national healthcare system that essentially functions as a corporation, and I can't stop but feel that somehow the public is losing, I'm not sure if, I guess first I have to take public comment, but in the meantime, thank you very much for your feedback. Is there any public comment on this, Mitzi?
Yes, there is. Angelica Valencia.
If you can step up to the podium, please, and speak to the microphone, that would be great. And a reminder that you only have 2 minutes to provide public comment.
So, my name is Angelica Valencia. I've been working at the outpatient pharmacy at the San Mateo Medical Center. I actually live down the street here in Redwood City. So I was born and raised here. So I understand how some of our Hispanic folks are going to be struggling with all these cuts and all these things they're going to have to go through. It's proposed that the outpatient pharmacy is closed. One of my biggest concerns is that patients who don't have Medi-Cal or who are pending Medi-Cal or are struggling to pay their medications are not going to be able to receive their medications either on time, therefore increasing ER visits, getting into more health problems. So my concern is that if the outpatient pharmacy closes, what's going to happen to these people? My concern also could be of privatization, making more and more, outsourcing more and more of the services we provide at the hospital. This is just the beginning with the pharmacy. I know they're talking about retail pharmacy, but for us, our patients are our patients. They're not just clients. They're not a number. So if we have a problem, we page the doctor, we contact the doctor immediately, so that way it decreases the wait time for the patient. We try to make sure that we give the patient the proper care. If there's a question in regards to the medication, if it's not covered, if there's a concern, we immediately contact the doctor. Our pharmacists go ahead, page the doctor, send a message to ECW, we contact the clinic for whichever way we can. So I'm just thinking, if a patient goes outside, are they going to receive the same care? And also, we speak their language. At the county outpatient pharmacy, we speak their language. We have the translation system, which patients who actually go to an outside pharmacy end up coming back to us because we give them the complete care. We're thorough when we give them their medications. If the doctor needs to see them, we say, you know what? The doctor needs to see you before you get your next fill. You're out of your medication, you don't have refills, let's give you an advance. We don't want you to be without your medication. If you have seizures and you're without your medication, a lot of bad things can happen to you. If you're an asthmatic, you need your inhalers right away. We contact your doctor's office. We give them appropriate time.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Valencia.
Sophie.
Hi, my name is Sophie O'Shaughnessy, and I have been a nurse practitioner at Fair Oaks Clinic for 22 years. It's nice to be here at the North Fair Oaks Council to know what happens behind the scenes for this community. I'm concerned about a number of things. I just really want to echo the business about the pharmacy. I've never even heard of a hospital without a pharmacy, but in particular, these cultural and linguistic issues and access issues are really compounded, no pun intended, in this area. So the other thing that I'm concerned about is that, we've had a lot of improvements in the time that I've been here. And they've been significant improvements. Even recently, we've got mental health embedded in the clinics, and that's made a huge difference for, the care that patients get in primary care, a large piece of which is mental health care. And we've always had team-based care. In fact, in an improvement event that Dr. Knoppel and I were involved in 2004, we really galvanized the staff to work together and to be very nimble and kind of to access the patient where they're at and to make sure that they go through the clinic in a way that works for them. And I understand that we have these new revenue issues, and we really have to design clinic visits to maximize that revenue based on metrics that really are about reimbursement and about the business of medication and medicine, and some of it really legitimate things that have to do with preventative care and the like. What I take issue with and I have a concern about is how much time that's taking, not only in the patient visit, but in the way that we are very process heavy now. And I'm not sure that we're working in a very nimble way and in a way that will allow us to have as much access as we need. Right now we've ramped up about a month and a half, and we're up to about maybe 5 or 6 visits per session. And some of us are finding that we're working harder, we're staying later, and we're just talking more about how this works. And at the same time, our leadership is talking about dealing with the 17,000 more. And we're not actually sure how that works in this model. And staff is very frustrated and getting burnt out. And I came here mostly not to speak, but actually to hear from the community about how the access issue is playing out. I know I see a lot more ER visits in my documents and so forth. And it's a work in progress, but those are my essential concerns, or all the concerns that I can bring out in 2 minutes plus.
Thank you.
You very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you for your comment.
Yeah.
Gabriela Valencia.
Good evening. My name is Gabriela Valencia. I have lived here in North Fair Oaks for more than 20 years, and I work as a nurse practitioner at Fair Oaks Health Center, and I'm very concerned about the budget cuts because on paper, or when we describe them in general terms, they don't seem as concerning as they actually are. These budget cuts will impact services that we offer to those individuals that are most vulnerable in our society, and I think that's something we have to remember. The key services that the San Mateo Medical Center outpatient pharmacy provides, it will be moved to the community pharmacies, but the community pharmacies are really not capable of taking the influx of patients with the language needs that we have at San Mateo Medical Center. And some of the outpatient services that this pharmacy provides are essential to patients in North Fair Oaks. So it's not just those patients that are in San Mateo. Our patients also access those services, and they're very essential. And the changes that are being implemented at Fair Oaks Health Center have been implemented in a very hasty manner without broad input or expertise from staff or community input. And these hasty changes have created unnecessary anxiety for the staff and confusion for our patients who have had sudden cancellations of appointments. And currently we have fewer appointments available than before these changes were implemented. And this creates anxiety for our patients and an increase in the number of emergency room visits. And I would like to point out also that the patients that we serve at Fair Oaks Health Center will not come to a meeting like this to complain about the services or the lack of access, especially in this political climate. Most Fair Oaks Health Center employees don't live in this community, and due to their long commutes are unable to come and speak to you about this. So just please keep that in mind, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment.
Lucy.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Lucy Latu. I'm a county employee. I work at the San Mateo Medical Center Innovative Care Clinic for adult primary care and reside in San Mateo. I'm here because I'm truly concerned about, I've grown up here in San Mateo County, so I don't separate myself based on a city limit. I'm all about the county. And my concern is with these budget cuts, what's being hit the hardest are services that are needed the most by the most unserved and underserved members of our community. And I have always grown up believing that the county had a responsibility to serve those people and to protect them and to take care of them. And with all these cuts that are occurring, it feels like it's been done too hastily. Like it hasn't been researched. I feel like we're so reactive rather than proactive. And although I've heard that they've been working on this for years, why haven't we been told about this years ago so that way we could be more proactive ourselves as a union, as employees, as community members? I'm in the middle of the model cell transformation, and currently we don't have access until April, possibly. And we have to, the amount of work, because, and granted it's changed and it requires an adjustment, but I just wish that we had better prepared for it, because the patients are getting canceled on without even understanding fully why, because they can't get access to us because the phones are everyone's calling. The lines are getting longer and longer just to talk to someone because we don't have enough people in the front. It just feels that we're not, and I understand the financial issue that's happening from DC, but can we just stop for a second and just do it properly, do it well, do it the way it should be done from the get-go rather than having to backtrack every single time? And that's what I feel, we're losing a lot of time and face-to-face with our patients because we're trying to put out all these little fires that are caused because we worked too quickly or went into things too fast. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Maria Palacios. Marta.
Good evening. My name is Marta Palacios. I work at San Mateo Medical Center. I'm part of the pharmacy. And briefly, I'm going to tell you what I do. I'm coordinator program. It's called the Pharmaceutical Patient Assistance Program. This program helps the patients that they cannot afford to pay the medications. And we're not talking about medications that they are generic. These are the medications that cost thousands of dollars. Then, in other words, the last 12 years working at San Mateo Medical Center, I've been saving a lot of money to the budget of the pharmacy. In general, probably the hospital. I'm very concerned, Dr. Canapoli said that this community is not going to be impacted. I work here at Fair Oaks Family Health Center for 26 years. I left my life here and my beauty and everything. But yes, this community is going to be impacted. I have probably 65 or 70% of this community that live here. I serve in San Mateo Medical Center for with very, very expensive medications and diseases. All the cancer patients, multiple myeloma, arthritis, you name it. And probably you didn't know, but I'm telling you right now. I'm very, very concerned because even though I don't work here, but I spend half of my life here working at Fair Oaks Family Health Center and now at the hospital. I'm very concerned because I know that this community is going to be impacted. Most of our patients that use our specialty clinics travel from here to the hospital. Okay, and please, we have to be united, okay, and try to do our best for our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment, Ms. Palacios.
Olivia Rodriguez.
Hi, my name is Olivia. I go to Mid-Penn High School in Menlo Park. San Mateo County is one of the richest counties in the nation and the state. Yet, Health Chief Luis Roger is proposing to balance the budget by cutting service. This is a direct attack to my community. There is a total of 8 hospitals in the county, and San Mateo County Medical Center is the only public hospital among them. These cuts will hurt my community because they are mostly prevent care service. Cutting health service reducing vital service to the most vulnerable populations in our communities. San Mateo County Medical Center is not for-profit hospital, and our community deserves better. In this fiscal year of 2019, the county had a combined fuel balance of $1.7 billion. $1 billion of this is available for spending without the county restriction. Please avoid health cuts and find other solutions so we can continue to have vital service in our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment.
Lupe Gutierrez.
Hi, good evening. My name is Lupe Gutierrez. I've been a Fair Oaks employee since 1993, since I was 19 years old, so I'm going on 27 years there. What CJ and Luis failed to mention about the operational changes is that we no longer have primary care evening hours for our adult patients, and that directly affects our patients that work during the day. My patients don't have sick time. They can't take off time to go to the work. They will just not seek care. Also, when you create barriers to access, yes, the numbers are going to dwindle. We have lost, our homeless grant went down by 2% because supposedly homeless patients are not accessing our care. Anyone who lives around here can tell you the homeless numbers have not gone down. They've most definitely gone up. So creating barriers to access will affect. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So here are some things that I'd like to know. I wanted to also remind Luis, again publicly, that in 2018, during our contract negotiations, I asked to partner with you. I asked you to partner with the labor unions on the Medi-Cal 2020 waiver, and we were rebuffed. We also knew that the ACA money, the Affordable Care Act money, was one-time monies. You knew who our presidents were. None of this was a surprise. None of this. Where we are now, it's not a surprise. You all proposed cuts even before the governor's budget was published. And in that budget, Medi-Cal has been expanded. Reimbursements for undocumented youth and for disabled elderly populations. Those are the populations that we serve here, right here at this clinic. Why did you contract with a slash and burn consultant, Navigant, with a history of privatizing hospitals? Why are you allowing someone who has a degree in microbiology to lead transformation in health? Why are you allowing your leaders, Brighton Nakube and Susan Ferniak, to threaten us with more layoffs if we don't comply and push certain parts of transformation through that we have voiced affect patient safety? I've brought all these to your attention already.
Thank
Is it
you.
really wise to cut services in the face of the coronavirus, especially since the state of, and since San Francisco has created or has called a state of emergency? And CJ, is this the legacy that you want to leave behind? Is
Thank
it
you, Ms.
layoffs
Ms.
and cuts to
Gutierrez.
public services?
Ms. Gutierrez, I'm sorry, but your time is
Thank
out.
you.
Thank you very much for your comment.
That's it.
Is that it, Mitch?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Just as a closing note, I saw the presentation that the San Mateo County Health provided to the Board of Supervisors, I believe a couple of weeks ago, and I got the impression, there was numerous and substantive public comment as well, rejecting the implementation of this plan. And but most importantly, I perceive that the Board of Supervisors are also very concerned about these implementations, and they seem positive about potential changes. So I believe that at some point, we as a community and as a society in general, including county workers, county administrators, I think that at some point we have to show general support so that we can change the healthcare system, because it's not going to be sustainable. I mean, there's so much that it can be done to jeopardize the public health, and I believe that these are good times to start generating a change that is badly needed. So again, thank you all for your feedback. Thank you, Chief Rogers and Dr. Canapoli for coming to present parts of your plan. I appreciate your time. And I wonder if I am wondering if we as council should have a recommendation for the for Supervisor Slocum to consider during the next meeting on March 10. So if council members have a suggestion for a recommendation that we can make to Supervisor Slocum, by all means, I believe we could potentially have a suggestion to be conveyed for Supervisor Slocum.
I think we also have the right to write letters or address the Board of Supervisors individually if people are passionate about it.
Right.
I watched public comment at the last Board of Supervisors meeting. They're hearing from a lot of people, so
Right.
you don't have to wait a month or two if you have a strong feeling. Just write a letter or make a phone call to an aide that works for the council member.
Correct.
I mean, the supervisor.
Yeah, you're correct, Blair. But as a council body for North Fair Oaks, do council members feel the need or think is a good idea to convey a recommendation or not? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion that we express our concerns. And Council Fox, are we then allowed to make such a recommendation to our own county supervisor? Could you explain that legality, please?
Right. Well, it's within the purview of the North Fair Oaks Community Council to advise the Board of Supervisors about matters that affect the North Fair Oaks community. So it's within your scope to make such a recommendation or give the feedback that you've heard from your community. It is on the agenda tonight for a report. We didn't specifically agendize an opportunity for any kind of action, but there is some latitude, I think, for you to have a discussion or give direction that you see fit. I don't know exactly what you had in mind. I think there's probably an outer limit to the level of detail that we have the time to formulate, and that is within the scope of the agendized item. But if you wanted to propose some kind of communication from the council and there was general support for it, you'd be free to do so on the agendized item tonight.
Okay, then I would then put a motion on the table for fellow council members to second and vote if they so choose.
And what is, can you voice your recommendation?
Our recommendation is expressing our concern for the restricted or elimination of vital services to our clinic and our county health services. Is that general? Is that general broad enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I second that.
Okay, so we have a second for Juan Carlos's recommendation to be conveyed to Supervisor Slocum. Thank you very much. I should ask council if we still have time for the rest of the items included, supervisor's report, county manager, council members.
There was a motion on the table. I believe it was seconded. I don't know that a vote was called.
The roll hasn't been.
Right. Okay.
Oh, that's correct. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I don't think you need to do it by roll call vote. You could just ask for unanimous consent, and that would be adequate.
Right. So I had a second to that motion by Chairwoman Linda Lopez. And Mitzi, can you take vote, please?
Just say all those in favor.
Okay, so those in favor say yes. Yes. Those opposed? Okay.
Motion carries.
All right, so The recommendation carries. Thank you.
And I believe your question is whether or not we had adequate time in order to get through the remaining items on the agenda. Since they are agendized and the public has expected them to be handled, I would recommend that we get through the end of the agenda and adjourn.
Thank you very much. In that case, we will go on. If we have a supervisor's report. No, that's fine. If there's no report, no worries. So there's no supervisor's report. Is there a county manager's report?
So there are 3 items on the county manager's report this evening. First is a reminder that the next council meeting will be the annual council retreat. That will be March 19th from 6 to 8:30 p.m. The retreat will be convened at the county center in room 101, which is down in downtown Redwood City. Facilitator for the retreat will be PCRC, and I was asked to let you know that dinner will be provided that evening. The second item, Joe Lococo, who is Deputy Director of Public Works, who presented the item to you, is retiring. We want to thank him for 30 years of service and congratulate him and wish him the best on his retirement. I think he's already left.
Yeah.
And finally, council member recruitment. The application process closed on the 25th of February. We're happy to say that we received 5 applications, and currently there are 3 vacancies. What we recommend is that this evening your council create an ad hoc committee to help establish who will be recommended. I assume the recommendation goes to the board for appointment?
The board makes the appointment, yes.
Right. So if you wanted to appoint that ad hoc committee tonight, my understanding from council is that could be done. And then they could proceed to review those applications and make recommendations probably back to the full council and then to the board?
Right. The recommendation would be from the full council rather than from the ad hoc committee to the board.
Sounds good. So should we form the ad hoc selection committee?
So through the chair, last time you had 3 people?
Correct. And so is anybody willing to volunteer with me? I would need 2 additional, so Beatrice
I'll volunteer for evening time.
and Blair? Yeah, usually they happen during, the interviews happen during the evening. Okay, so Beatrice and Blair. Great, thank you for volunteering. And then, and thank you for the county manager's report, Peggy. Next, we have council members' reports. Are there any reports?
I got a quick one.
Go ahead, Blair.
I went to the Redwood City Council where they were talking about Sequoia Station, and that was a marathon meeting. They went till like 11:30. I left after public comment. It was fun, but well, not fun. I mean, everyone was deeply and passionately engaged, and the council members earned their honorary pay that day. Anyway, they're not going to do like 18-story towers there. And they are going to do something with the train station, but there's a chance that they're going to shift more toward Redwood Junction because there may not be room to put all these tracks side by side with high-speed rail, electrified Caltrain, plus the Cross Bay thing. So in the coming years, we may see North Fair Oaks becoming like the hub of the peninsula versus there, because the box building and the towers, I don't know, but it's in play. And we're partners of the greater Redwood City community. They're partners with us. It's on the radar.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And just briefly, I'll give an update about the Climate Ready North Fair Oaks project still going on. This is a collaboration with Stanford University and El Concilio de San Mateo and the Siena Youth Center and North Fair Oaks Community Council. we got, or El Concilio applied and got some specific funding for a fellow who's going to be hired and be working part-time, I believe 15 to 20 hours to organize, facilitate, and do other activities surrounding and supporting the climate-ready North Fair Oaks project. So we will keep you posted about that. That is also a project where this team of organizations got funding from San Mateo County's Office of Sustainability to take on a study of initially sea level rising, and then now it has become a more comprehensive climate change project. So we will keep you posted on any future progress. And if nobody else has a report, then the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for your patience, and thank you all county members for your support.